Hey y'all, it's your girl Mariah Sincere, aka Thepassportsis, and I am back with another bomb live. Y'all, this has been an eventful last couple days, so we have a lot to talk about. Before I get started, I just want to let y'all know that I am a life coach who specializes in helping people radically transform their lives. I was able to do so with my life. Trust me, at the beginning of 2024, I did not like where I was in life. I decided I wanted to move to another country, and within 6 months, I made it happen, baby. I am the queen of that action and getting things done when I want to get them done. So, if you are stuck in a toxic relationship, dead end job, or anything of the sort, I've been through it all. I can help you out. With that said, we are going to have a bomb live tonight. Now, if you are sensitive, this is not the live for you. I'm sorry. If you cannot have mature discussions, if you get up in your feelings, and if you want a name call, if you are way too partisan in terms of whether you're a Dem or a Republican, like this not the live for you. And disclaimer, I do tend to lean more on the conservative side, but many things you really just kind of have to ask. I'm an independent. It depends on the situation. My views are very nuanced, but if you are very sensitive, if you one of those people who believe that President Obama was the best president to ever do it, this is not the live for you, baby. This is not the live for you. If you're a person who you can't take criticism or you can't handle truth and you can't handle facts, this not gonna be the live for you. I'm sorry. Hey Olivia, hey sis, yes girl, I'm back today. Look, I said let me get it together. Let me do a little something slight. It's good to see you, sis. Yeah, y'all know I was gonna have to come on here and speak on it. Like I wanted to give it a little bit of time to simmer. If you're just now coming in, please hit the like button. Also, hop in the comments. The more y'all interact, the more energy I have for y'all. Okay, great. Yeah. So, yeah, I've been seeing some things, y'all. It's crazy how like night and day people feel about Donald Trump, depending on it really just kind of depends on who you are. And I feel like if you're this is like a very difficult place to be. If you're a minority, I don't even want to say a minority, because I feel like if you go among other racial groups, like if you're an Asian or if you're Muslim or if you are Hispanic, I feel like there's much more room in those communities for you to have different opinions, for you to support some of the things that Donald Trump is doing. And I feel like if you are a black person, or if you have a black parent, if you are anything black, biracial, whatever, there's not really much room for you to have diversity of thought. So, right now we are going through it. People are calling us dumb. People are calling us coons. I'm going to talk about a lot of my perspective, because I don't 100% agree with everything that Donald Trump or the MAGA movement wants to do. But I will say overall, I feel like we're headed in a better direction than what the country was headed under the Democrats. I feel like overall there is the people that voted for Donald Trump, he is making good on what he said he's going to do. And the difference between people who supported that MAGA movement and people who supported the Democrats is the Democrats make all type of campaign promises that they never intend on fulfilling. So it's like, what is the point in voting for them? And I feel like, he's making good on the things he said. Now, a lot of the Democratic voters are like, okay, this is what y'all wanted. Oh, y'all voted for him. This is what y'all wanted. Like, throwing it back up in our face. And it's like, yes, we voted for him and he's doing what we wanted him to do. I know you're not used to your politicians making good on the things that they say they're going to do, but it's absolutely not an insult to a movement of people to tell them that their politician is doing everything they said they're going to do on the campaign trail. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all. Like, if y'all make it make sense to me, because I don't get it. I don't get the insult there. But he has made some big moves. Now, one of the main things that he's done is he is putting it into birthright citizenship. So, for those of y'all who don't know what birthright citizenship is, per the 14th Amendment, if you were born on U.S. soil, then you are considered a United States citizen, period. Right? Now, this is not normal. This is actually rare. We are one of the only countries where this happens. And that's why I feel like America, as much as people um we talk down on our country, and I'm gonna say we because I've done it before. Trust me, I used to be like really, really liberal. So I've talked down America. At one point, I felt like we were just the scum of the earth, and then I started learning about other countries and other cultures and seeing more things, talking to people, and I'm like, oh, actually, this is absolutely not the worst place to be. I think as an American citizen, especially if you come from African American lineage or descendancy, I feel like we were taught to feel a kind of way, especially considering the horrific history of slavery in this country. But then when you learn about slavery that exists in other countries and is still ongoing, like it's not over. Like the slave trade is still very much rich and alive. Like when you learn about the smegs trafficking industry, when you learn that there are like this is not it didn't go away, it went away here. So when you learn about the fact that like at least you got to kind of try to put things into perspective, and it's not a justification of it, but in this country you had people who felt so strongly against slavery that we had a whole war over it. And never in the history of the entire world has there ever been a war over slavery. So I mean, as much as I wish that it was a practice that we never had, as much as I think that it's wrong, as much as I think it's horrific, what I will say is there are absolutely worse places to be. There are worse places for Black people to be. Trust and believe. It's just again, we have been taught to hate our country. We have been taught to view being Black as a handicap, right? And I'm absolutely tired of that because it's not. And I'm going to get into that when I talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that made me kind of really upset is I was, me and my daughter and I have always lived around minorities. So before I moved to Columbia, I lived in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and my daughter went to school with predominantly Black children. There might have been a few Hispanics sprinkled in there, and I think she had one white classmate. My point being is that she's never been around white people. Like she wouldn't even know the first thing to tell you about them, their culture, their mannerisms, or how they behave. I personally, I'll be friends with anybody, but I personally prefer to live around, for cultural reasons, prefer to live around other minorities, but I'll be friends with anybody if we click. It's just as far as where I live, I like to live around Black and brown people. So a couple months ago, we were in Colombia. Again, we're not even around, we're in Latin America, and my daughter tells me that she hates white people. And I'm like, where did you learn that? So she starts talking to me about some of the things that she learned in school in regards to slavery. And I'm like, see, this is the reason why everybody shouldn't teach that. And I'm saying that as a history teacher who taught about slavery, but I taught it to older kids. I was able to teach it from all different angles because I actually went to college to learn about this, right? And like the way they teach it to our kids, they make it seem like all white people owned slaves when a small minority did. They make it seem like all white people were approving of that, which is not true. We had an entire war over it, right? It's just crazy. So it's like you have my daughter here who has an irrational fear of people who she's never even been around, and she thinks that they're going to do something bad to her. But we'll talk about that soon. Okay, I just be over it. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the 14th Amendment, and it was passed to deal with the issue of what do you do with all of these newly freed slaves, right? Because technically speaking, when they wrote laws about citizenships and when the Bill of Rights was created, it was not done with us in mind. As a matter of fact, when our nation was founded during during the Revolutionary War, Thomas Jefferson actually did, and he owned slaves too. So there's some history there. But he wrote about slavery and wrote about how it was wrong, but they chose to leave it out, right? Which was the wrong thing to do, which is why, we eventually had to reckon with it in the Civil War. They should have addressed it right then and there. Okay. With that said, our Constitution said absolutely nothing about Black people. We weren't considered people then, to be honest, even though we were. So when the 14th Amendment was passed, it was passed and it was heavily debated because of the issue of what to do with African American descendants of slaves. Now, even back then, when they argued and during the ruling, they understood that this law could be used to cover a broader range of people, so that you had to be very careful about the language. But ultimately, they just decided if you were born in the United States, let's make you a United States citizen. Let's not flesh it out. I don't think that they understood how much that law would be abused. And I've seen it abused myself. Like, I've seen, when you live around immigrant communities, you see people who, like, they don't even want to live here. Their parents are not citizens, so they're not coming. Like, I've seen people who, I got a sister that lives in Africa, and she don't want to live here, but she wants her kids to be able to come here and be citizens if they want to. So she's pregnant. She's going to come here when she's like 6 months pregnant, stay, have the baby, and go back. And the mom is not a citizen. They technically didn't come here illegally, but the mom came here just to give her child an opportunity to get United States citizenship. And they have United States citizenship, even though they don't intend on raising the children here. It's more so to have access. There are not many countries. I think we're the only country that you can do that in. So for people trying to make it seem like anybody who doesn't necessarily agree with birthright citizenship is like Adolf Hitler, that is not the norm. Even if you go to Japan, if you as an American citizen move to Japan, you can gain residency. You will never be a citizen. And the reason why they do that is because they don't have any shame in their game about them wanting to keep their culture and ethnicity. Like, they don't care. Over there in Asia, they don't care. They don't care about your feelings and what you're trying to say. How do I feel about it personally? I feel like anybody who came over here, I feel like if they already have U.S. citizenship, if it's already been done, they should let them keep it. I don't believe anybody should retroactively be getting their citizenship taken away. Going forward, I think that law does need to be looked at because it provides incentive for people to come over here illegally. And again, we're the only one that does it. So if that is the incentive and we're having issues with illegal immigration, then the incentive needs to be taken away. I'm sorry. That might seem wrong to y'all, but that's just how I feel about it. So I'm going to pull up this TikTok about birthright citizenship. Give me a second. Olivia, well, you're probably in the shower. I hope y'all can hear me. Let me make sure my mic is on. I hate it when I be talking for a long time and the mic ain't even on. Here we go. Favorites. Give me a second. I'm about to share my screen. I'm also going to get into the DEI programs. We're going to talk about all the executive orders. So I'm going to go to TikTok. That's another thing, y'all. We almost lost TikTok for a minute. Did y'all have a heart attack? Okay. Was y'all breaking down? Was y'all one of the ones crashing out on social media over TikTok? I wasn't crashing out. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't crashing out. Part of that is because, like, I have a good following on there. But once I heard about them potentially banning it, I stopped investing into it. But I do have a big enough following on there. Like, I have a TikTok shop. Like, if I really want to go hard at it, the infrastructure for me to do it is already there. I just decided to, like, put it on pause. But we shall see. I don't think it's going to get banned. I think they'll come to a deal. So I'm going to share this screen. Let me mute myself.
Trump's executive order on ending birthright citizenship has been released, so I'm going to break down who it affects, when it starts, and what it all means. Right now, if you're born in the United States, you're automatically a United States citizen, and that is based on the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. But this new executive order is trying to reinterpret that. Trump has declared in this executive order that if you're born in the United States 30 days after the date of this executive order, you won't be a U.S. citizen if your mother was undocumented at the time of your birth and your father was not a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident. You also won't be a U.S. citizen 30 days from the date of this order if your mother is in the United States legally, but temporarily, like on a student visa, a work visa, or a tourist visa. And your father.
Okay, so basically what it sounds like to me is if you have one parent that's a citizen, then you'll be granted citizenship. I honestly don't understand why, if you are an illegal immigrant, you would come over here and get into a relationship with another illegal immigrant, especially as a woman. That don't make sense. Like, why would you get romantically involved and have a baby with somebody who cannot provide you a path towards upward mobility and legal status? And again, I know that just because you get into a relationship with somebody who is legal and you're illegal, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be allowed to stay. But in terms of securing your children's future, to me, that would be the best option. Like, whether or not this executive order got passed or not. And I've seen that. I've seen two illegal immigrants get together and have kids, and their kids are legal, but now they have to wait until their kids turn 21 to fix their papers. And trust me, money talks. Like, I know plenty of illegal immigrants who had the money who were able to get their papers fixed. And that's another thing. For those who have been here 20 and 30 years and you still haven't got your papers fixed, especially the ones who have been working and making money and making good money, I really don't like. I understand that they are afraid of getting deported, but it's kind of hard for me to have sympathy, because what have you been doing this whole time? If you've been here 20, 30, and 40 years and you have not gotten your papers fixed, that is absolutely on you. I'm sorry. There are too many ways and paths for too many people to be paid off. I've seen it. So although I don't think those who, like I said this before, I think if you were here on DACA when it was passed, all those dreamers, all those kids who have been here since they were really young and their parents brought them over here and they grew up like they're American citizens. Like, well, I mean, they're just as American as any American citizen. I think they should be able to stay. Now, if you came over here and had kids in the United States as an illegal immigrant these last 4 years, those kids are still small. Y'all still have time to go back into your country and for them to assimilate to that culture. So, I have limits on that. But yeah, I'm having a real hard time understanding people who've been over here for that long and ain't got their papers fixed. And maybe I just need to learn a little bit more and have a little bit more empathy.
Father is not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. So if you're born before the effective date of this order, you're a United States citizen, and this is not a retroactive executive order. Also, if at least one parent is a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident, then their child is a United States citizen. Children.
Okay, even that gives more leeway than what the majority of countries would be giving American citizens if we move there. He's even saying if your parent is a lawful permanent resident, in order for you to apply for permanent residency, I think you had to have at least been here for 5 years. So even if they're not a citizen, but they're a permanent resident, if you have children here as an immigrant, they will be considered a U.S. citizen. Again, the United States extending courtesy to people where if we tried to go into their country, we would not be extended a lot of the same courtesies.
Children of green card holders or lawful permanent residents are also considered to be U.S. citizens at the time of birth per this executive order. Now, again, the order applies to babies born 30 days from the date of this order and beyond. And the order has directed government agencies to give their guidance on how it's going to be enforced within 30 days from now. Now, can the president actually do this? Many legal experts say absolutely not. And that's because of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And that's because the 14th Amendment says that all persons born in the United States and who are subject to the jurisdiction thereof are U.S. citizens at birth. And courts have historically interpreted this very broadly. And the Supreme Court has ruled that being born in the United States makes you a citizen irrespective of your parents' immigration status.
Yeah, he's definitely gearing up for a legal battle. I think they're prepared, though. I mean, they knew that this was going to be challenged on its constitutionality. So Trump can afford some of the best lawyers on his own salary. He doesn't even have to use a dime of the United States money. He can afford some of the best lawyers. I don't think it'll be an easy fight. I don't know how the Supreme Court is going to rule on this. Just because there's precedent, just because they've already made a ruling on this issue, doesn't mean it can't be overturned. Y'all see what happened with Roe versus Wade. So it's very much possible for a Supreme Court to overturn precedent or decisions that were made 50, 100, 150 years ago, guys. So just because yeah, like you can definitely challenge it on the terms of constitutionality. That doesn't mean that the Supreme Court is going to rule against Donald Trump, especially considering circumstances. This is one of those situations where the vast majority of the American people voted for Donald Trump. So there's clearly a mandate here. The vast majority of people that voted for Donald Trump support this move. And I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I don't know which way it's going to go. Y'all know our Supreme Court leans conservative. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will rule in Donald Trump's favor. There are some constitutionalists who, just because a judge is conservative doesn't mean that they don't respect the law in the way that it was written at the time that it was written. So we can never know. What I will say is, me personally, I don't too much care whichever way it goes, right? Because even if they say illegal immigrants can have children here and they'll be United States citizens, my whole thing is if they were able to come here illegally and have the kid, then we were messing up somewhere to begin with. There are so many other measures that we can put in place to prevent this from even happening in the first place, that by the time the woman is here in the hospital and having a baby, as a government, we have not done our job. So if the Supreme Court upholds the original ruling, I won't be mad at that at all. Okay. So let's talk about DEI. Now, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And this began kind of on the tails of the Trayvon Martin case, y'all. Y'all remember when what's that man's name? Mark Zimmerman gunned down Trayvon Martin. It was publicly broadcast. I remember I was upset. I was pissed off during that time. Like emotions, intentions were high. I feel like a lot of underlying grievances that Black America had with white people got brought to the forefront. And I don't necessarily think that was a bad thing. I think some of these grievances definitely needed to be fleshed out. I hear a lot of white people say, well, before Obama, nobody talked about race, but that's not necessarily true. I feel like all my life I've been hearing Black people talk about race, but we mostly talked about it at home and in our kitchen. But when you're just talking about things behind closed doors among yourself, you can't necessarily get the whole truth, or you're just assuming what other people are thinking, or you don't have any experiences to compare it to, or you can't ask for clarification. I think also too, when you're just talking amongst yourself, it's an echo chamber. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I can think of at least, I know one job I had where I called the bosses at this job racist. And to be fair, I don't necessarily think I was all the way wrong at that. But when I think about my performance at this job and the quality of work that I gave, I can absolutely understand why they treated me the way they treated me. Absolutely. 1000%. When I think of all the lollygagging that I did at that job, like, I could see how that caused them to treat me the way that they treat me, because the other Black people that were there that were top performers, they could do no wrong in the boss's eyes. Like, they were making the company money. So even if they didn't like Black people, they liked those Black people, you know? So it's like, in that situation at the time, I was like, oh, they're racist. They just don't like Black people. I'm talking to other people. I'm not ever really being honest about how I contribute to the situation. I'm not really getting any clarification from my bosses. Like, I just kind of feel like this was a conversation that needed to be had. Certainly, racist people do exist. Certainly, people who don't like Black people do exist. I just honestly and truly don't think that it's to the extent that we thought that it did. Or sometimes certain things can happen for certain reasons, and because you make an assumption of what it is, or because you lack self-awareness, you automatically attribute it to racism. Okay, I would liken this to, y'all know, a lot of women who are biracial just automatically assume that people don't like them because they're light skinned. And certainly there are people who are not going to like you because you're light skinned. But like, how was your attitude when you walked up in the room? How do you talk to people? How do you treat people? Do you treat people like you're better than them? Well, maybe that's why they don't like you. You can't just automatically defer to, it's because I'm light skinned. Y'all get what I'm trying to say? And I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers here. You know, I'm gonna ruffle some feathers, but it is what it is. And I'm saying this as a person who, like, let me say this. I want to ask y'all, if you're in the room here, please, y'all comment, like the video, please participate, especially if you're Black or minority. Have you ever really felt like you needed DEI? Because I never felt like I needed DEI. So again, DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion. To be honest, I didn't even know that there were people specifically getting hired into these roles. I knew there was affirmative action. So I've always known that workplaces and colleges want to either hire or admit a certain number of minorities. I'm not sure exactly how they broke that down. I'm not sure if they were like, we got to hire a certain amount of women, or we got to hire a certain amount of Black people. I've never worked in HR or anything where I would have that type of insider information. Me personally, I never have felt like I needed DEI. Now, before y'all try to make it seem like I'm insensitive, let me explain. Because here's the problem. I feel like a lot of people are very sheltered as to how the real world actually works. And if you know me, you will know that I worked in an industry for about 5 years where everything was centered around your looks. So I've been told to my face, we're not hiring Black women right now. To my face. To my face. We're not hiring Black women right now. I've been told to my face, we're not hiring, an exotic look. We don't want exotic girls right now. I've been on jobs where they told us, y'all all gotta lose weight. Everybody gotta lose weight. See, I feel like the problem is a lot of people are sensitive and a lot of people are attributing everything to racism, but you've never really experienced real racism. And that's why I kind of get a little irritated when I hear people try to tell me like, oh, well, it's easy for you to say the things that you say because you're biracial, white people accept biracial people. When I've been told to my face, we're not hiring your look right now. There's a hiring freeze on Black girls. There's a hiring freeze on exotic people. And in that industry, There's nobody that you can who you going there's nobody that you can sue. Like, you can't sue these companies. First of all, you won't even be able to prove that they said that. Nobody's gonna believe you, right? So I had to learn to make myself more marketable. If they said, hey, y'all, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight to keep your job, we're looking for this kind of look, I had to learn to adapt. And what happened is I became a stronger person. I became a better worker. I became a bigger hustler. It made me better. Am I saying it's right? No. But the fact of the matter is, people's business is their business. They know how to market their business. They know how to run their business. They know what sells in their business. They know what type of dynamic they want to have in their business. And if I felt like a business was just too racist, or you don't want me here because the way that I look, I don't want to be there. I'm sorry, I don't. Because even if you do hire me because I try to bully you, or the government tries to bully you into hiring me, you're not going to treat me right. And you can't prove intent. Somebody could mistreat you and find every other reason to try to fire you, or treat you terrible on the job. And as long as they never say anything racist towards you, or they don't say anything about your, sexual orientation or how they think they look, as long as they say something to criticize your performance, whether it's true or not, people can treat you how they want to treat you, and you cannot prove intent. So to me, all of that affirmative action and things of that nature is pointless, because people don't want to hire you. They're going to have resentment towards you. And that's why a lot of African American people who do go on the job and they do experience racism, like genuine racism, right? That's why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, because somebody hired you who does not like you. And I think we should go where we are celebrated and not tolerated. Olivia says, I'm on the fence about it. I feel like we're already at a disadvantage. So I always make sure I do everything in my power to market myself to the best of my ability. So I agree with you. Yeah, you're already coming in at a disadvantage. But guess what, Olivia? And this is why I say, Black people, we have to stop, and I'm not saying you're doing this, because I agree. Like, you got to do everything. I applaud you for saying, I'm going to be on my P's and Q's. Because the fact of the matter is, a business is going to want a person in position that is the most beneficial, period. If a person is racist and they hire you, but your performance is bringing them in the money, your performance is keeping their clientele happy, they're going to see you as an asset. Even if they don't like Black people, they're going to like you. I promise you. I promise you. I can't tell you how many jobs. Y'all know my attitude. I'm real fly at the mouth. I'm a very hard worker. I'm the person that you call when you want the job to get done. But I don't take too much foolishness from people. And I have had managers tell me, the only reason why I don't fire you is because you work hard, because of the work ethic. Even though they could have, even though they were a different race, even though maybe they might have not liked my attitude that much, they know when I need the job to get done, this is a producer, right? So, and that's what I'm saying. We have to focus more on making ourselves marketable. I remember working in the high school really made me change my mind about affirmative action. I'm going to be honest. It was going and working in schools with minority children that made me change my mind, because their parents were raising them with an entitled mentality, so much so to where they weren't even coming in class trying, a lot of them. And there were ones who did. But they were like the very small minority. The rest were cheating or not even trying. And when you talk to them about college and trying to get money to go to college, their whole thing was, I was told I'm going to get a scholarship because I'm Black. I was told that I'll be able to get somebody to do my homework when I go play football. Like, there's absolutely no respect for actually putting in the work and attaining it. Everything was being sold to these young Black children that you're going to get extra help because you're Black. But that produces mediocrity. Like, I want our Black children to be excellent. And as much as people want to, because y'all know the affirmative action case got overturned because the Asian Americans felt like they were being discriminated against because Harvard University did not want to accept them in because they were Asian, right? They didn't want to accept too many Asians. But one thing I will say about the Asian community, y'all, is they not thinking about no scholarships for them being Asian. They don't care about those minority programs they produce. And I'm saying this as somebody who teaches Chinese kids. Y'all, these kids have been on winter break for like a month now, and every single one of my students who I talk to are telling, I'm asking, what have you done for fun on break? Homework. What? Oh, I just got done with the math lesson. I just got done with the piano lesson. I just got done with a science lesson. Like, their parents are putting them in position. They're working very hard. So I understand why they took that case to the Supreme Court, because you should be able, if you're putting in the kind of work that these kids are putting in at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're able to do that consistently, and your parents are investing in you to that degree, right? I have Chinese kids who read in English better than American kids. So should that person not be given a job or be kept out of an opportunity because there are no spots available for them because we have a certain amount of DEI hires that we have to hit? Now, I'm going to pull up some TikToks with some views that are opposing to mine because I like to present the opposing side. So we can discuss this. Like, I'm not in my feelings over none of this. Give me a minute. Again, if you're just now coming in, please hit the like button. Please feel free to hop into the chat. So this is a white man's perspective that I'm going to give y'all right now. Let me mute myself.
By Trump's presidential decree, all DEI hires in the federal government are supposed to be placed on administrative paid leave as of today, by the end of today. Now, what's going to happen is all these different agencies have to come up with a list and a plan of how they're going to dismiss these DEI hires. So they're basically all fired. He is ending all the DEI practices within the federal government, removing all the websites related to that. He is just wiping it clean. And he claims he wants to go back to a merit-based system of hiring. That's all fine and dandy, but the problem is, here's what happened.
I feel the need to say this. Like, in this economy, I definitely feel bad for anybody who is losing their job, especially a government job. Like, a government job seems safe. I know that's probably because a lot of people don't want to go work for the government. They don't pay a lot of money. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of people felt like this was a recession-proof job. And you know what? I'm going to blame these companies and the government because I feel like a lot of people created these DEI roles and programs just to hop on trends. And they didn't sit and think, is this going to actually be beneficial to the business? So I don't know if y'all seen this, but a lot of companies are coming out announcing that they are scrapping their DEI programs. And this has nothing to do with the federal government. Individual businesses, if they want to have a DEI program, they can have a DEI program, right? But this has everything to do with it's just not working. A lot of people are not feeling it. A lot of them are losing business. So, for example, if you have a company that is coming out and promoting children transitioning, well, the majority of Americans don't agree with that in terms of them doing a sex transition. They don't agree with that. So you're going to turn the majority of your consumer base off over time if you keep pushing those messages. So it's just not profitable. But again, these companies, they hop on trends to sell a product, and then when they feel like the trend is no longer popping or that you're not useful, then they fire you or they X the program out. So I don't think that's right. These companies need to have some accountability and responsibility, but it's all about making a quick dollar. But these companies have to be wiser and think long term, kind of just like during COVID when everybody was working at home and these companies hired all of these employees to do work from home, and nobody had any foresight about whether or not they were going to actually be able to sustain paying these employees, especially now that growth has slowed down. So now they're laying all of them off. So I definitely, in this economy, have compassion for anybody who is jobless and has to look for a job. What I will say is I hope that these people were able to bring enough value to the department that they worked in the federal government to where they can get a good recommendation, that they were brushing up on skills. Just because somebody was hired under a DEI program doesn't mean that they're incompetent, right? But I do think this pissed the MAGA base off enough for several reasons to where Trump said he was going to address it, so now he has to address it. And again, if you paid attention to his campaign, you already knew that this was going to get addressed. Again, me personally, I've never depended on a DEI program. Okay. Matter of fact, every time I've applied for a job, I don't even put my race on the job application. Why? Why do you need to know that? If you like what you see on my resume, call me in for an interview. You'll figure it out then. But like I've just never seen any reason that was beneficial. I was told that companies need to hire a certain amount of Black people, so it might be good to put it on your resume. But then I've heard that people don't call Black people back. So as a Black person, I just never understood the benefits. I felt like it was just too much of a risk. So I never put my race. I've never been a DEI hire. And I've always counted on my work ethic in order to keep my position. Y'all, if y'all see the way that I do job interviews, y'all would be like, what? Because I automatically come into a job interview with the mentality of I'm the value. You need me. I don't need you. This is what I can and cannot do. Like, I talk to them like this is a negotiation, because at the end of the day, I'm the value, baby. If you don't want to hire me, somebody else is going to hire me, because I know the value that I am going to bring to this company. I know how I am going to elevate you, right? So that's always been my mentality. And I kind of think it's like, me personally, as a minority, I wouldn't get on the internet crying about DEI, because to me, what that says to everybody else is that you don't think that you bring anything of substance to the table. You don't think that you can stand on your work, or you don't think that you can stand on your merit. And regardless of whether there is DEI or not, you need to be able to stand on your qualifications, period. So me personally, I know whether there's DEI or not, I'm going to be employed. I feel like the only people who something like DEI should be covering is somebody who is disabled, whether it's like mentally or physically. Like, we need to have protections for those people. But y'all got to think about it. Like, that's what I'm saying. We always think that we have it the worst, right? Every group that is a minority group, whether you're a Black person, a brown person, an indigenous person, like whatever the case may be, we always think we got it worse than the next person. And nobody talks about how the people who really have it the worst in this society are the people who have handicaps. Okay, imagine you go into a job interview that might require some physical labor and you're in a wheelchair. Like, nobody really, like, I think we're so in our own bubble, and sometimes we can be so self-centered that we don't understand that there are people who can't get jobs because they have physical disabilities. So I think DEI should definitely cover those people if they're going to cover anybody. Give me 1 second. Again, if you're in here, please hit the like button.
What happens with merit base? You have two people equally qualified for the job, right? Let's say you have a white person, then you have a person of color on the other side, both equally qualified. What was happening was the white person was always getting hired. They were getting the preferred treatment, and they weren't hiring the person of color or the gay person. Preferential treatment was always going to white people. That's the problem here. It's plain and simple. And he wants to go back to that. That's what.
Okay, so basically what this man is saying is, if everything is equal, all things considered, when you have a Black person and a white person go for the same job and they have the exact same qualifications, then the deal breaker is going to be race. How do you judge that though? Like, how do you know that? How do you know that in this person's mind, the determination was made based on race? Furthermore, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to say the deal breaker 100% of the time with all things qualified is race, right? Well, do y'all not do that? Black people who have jobs and have companies and have businesses, if you have a Black person with the exact same qualifications come apply to your job and you have a white person with the exact same qualifications, let's even say personality, because that's another thing. You might do a job interview with these people and you like one person's personality more than the other, right? And a lot of times that's going to be due to just cultural familiarity. Are you not going to hire the Black person over the white person? And I can definitely understand where there was a time for that. But we're in a time and place where Black people have more opportunities. Black people are opening businesses. I've worked for a Black owned company before. Even as a teacher, everybody that hired me and gave me an opportunity who was in a position of power was a Black person. This is not 1950 or 1960s where you cannot sit down and do an interview with a person that looks like you. It's just not. And a lot of those people who got to where those positions of power, like if you're a Black person and you're getting to the point where you're doing the hiring and firing, 9 times out of 10, that person busted their butt and they're there based on merit, period. But I definitely I get the concern. I just don't feel like things are the same now. I guess we'll see.
That's what this means. So when you have two people equally qualified and one is a person of color, then it's going to go to the white person, more than likely. Like, share, spread the word, and let me know what you guys think in the comments.
And it might not necessarily be true that that person is automatically going to hire the white person. What if the employer, again, what if the person doing the hiring and firing isn't white? What if the person who is doing the hiring and firing is white, but they happen to like Black people, or, like there are so many factors that go into it that I think it's very difficult to really determine how these decisions get passed. It's really quite arbitrary. And bottom line is we can't prove it. I'm just being honest. You can't prove whether or not somebody hired you based on your race, because 9 times out of 10, if they're smart, unless they're an idiot, they're not going to say they didn't hire you because you weren't the right color. They're not going to say that. And would you even want that person to hire you? If they think like that, how do you think your working conditions are going to be? I don't want a person that doesn't want to hire Black people or who thinks that white people are better than Black people to hire me. Please don't hire me. Please spare me. I will find something better. Trust and believe. Black people had jobs before DEI, y'all. Black people had jobs before affirmative action. There were whole Black companies. There were Black people who owned printing presses and shoe shops and well-to-do Black neighborhoods. And this is why I don't like that when we talk about Black history, it's always told through a lens of victimhood. Like we have to depend on white people to give us an opportunity in order to flourish. Like I definitely think stories like Tulsa need to be told, and Seneca Village and what happened at Lake Lanier. Like, yes, there were definitely obstacles. There were definitely racist people who were trying to stunt the growth and progress of Black people. But those were not the only Black. There are still Black people here in the United States. And I'm going to pull this up. There are still Black people in the United States who accumulated wealth after slavery, and they've been able to maintain their wealth. We don't even want to talk about the Black bourgeoisie in this country who never were slaves. They were always free people, and they've maintained generational wealth up until now. And these are things that we don't talk about. is that the majority know, but guess what? Majority of white people are not rich or wealthy. Okay, so here's a black man. He's giving his perspective on DEI. Give me a second.
Look at this foolishness. Donald Trump is ordering all federal employees working in diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI roles, to be placed on paid leave by 5 p.m. today. He issued this memo yesterday, and they have to be out today. So all federal agencies, they all have to shut down the DEI offices, remove their websites and social media accounts, and they even have to come up with a plan to fire the employees by the end of the month. All DEI efforts tossed out like yesterday's trash. But
okay, this is one thing I'm gonna say about that. I don't think just because they're DEI hires that they should be automatically up on the chopping block. I would have preferred that he come up with a way for them to evaluate performance, unless this was a situation where the role of the job was specifically centered around DEI. And that's what I'm thinking this is. Like, for example, I was looking at some job where the only thing this person was supposed to do was every day. It was at Google. They were supposed to give you the history of the indigenous people that the building was built on. And it was like every day. And this was this woman's only job. And it's like, well, is that serving the purpose and the function of this business? Right? If these people care or want to know about the history of indigenous people, they can go do that on their free time. So you're basically paying somebody to, even though it's well-intentioned, even though we want people to be like, I guess, culturally competent. If people want to be culturally competent, then they will. Somebody, whether or not they are or not culturally competent in certain roles, that doesn't necessarily matter. If you're sitting behind a computer screen all day, even if you're interacting with people from other races, like, the function of your role is not centered around being functionally competent. The function of your role is to fulfill a particular task, right? So for example, it's probably in a teacher's best interest to be culturally competent because we work with children, right? But that's not the job I got hired for. So nobody's gonna fire me because I was a DEI hire, because my true function is being a teacher. You just give somebody like me DEI training. So you could take away DEI, I would still have a job.
rest assured, he's keeping his promises. It's everything that he ran on. He told you.
There's no more DEI programs in the federal government. So the more inclusion, if you're LGBTQ, if you're a woman, if you're a guy that thinks he's a woman, apparently all that's out the window now. So for those of you guys who don't know, I was lucky enough to work for the U.S. Marshal Service for a few years. And right before I left, there was something called the 30/30 Initiative. What this initiative does is they wanted to make the workforce in the U.S. Marshal Service 30% females by the year 2030. I believe it wasn't only for the U.S. Marshal Service. It went out to different federal agencies as well. But that's what that was. So no more DEI program.
Okay, as a woman, I want to know, what was the purpose in that? Like, in what way would the U.S. Marshal Service have been better if you made the force 30% women? Like, I want to hear the justification for that. Right? And honestly and truly, I don't think there's anything wrong with having jobs that are predominantly male. I don't. So I want to know, what was the purpose? What was the reason? Me personally, I think the police force should be predominantly male. People aren't really like a lot of these men are not afraid of women. These women don't put fear in their hearts. Even a woman walking around with a gun, they're more likely to try us. It just is what it is. Now, I think women should be able to work for these. If a woman is willing to do the work, and if she can meet the same standards as a man in terms of physicality and how she's able to perform on the job, then I think that women should be able to work for the armed forces or the U.S. Marshals or the police force or the fire force or whatever it may be. But I don't think the standard should be lowered so that women can be able to enter those fields. No, if you want to do a job that is dominated by males, you need to be able to perform up to the same standard as men. And if you can do that, then no problem. But diversity for the sake of diversity, I don't agree with that. And you got to make it make sense.
Programs in the U.S. government. I think that's pretty good news for all these new applicants that want to be federal employees, right? Now it's going to be based on merit, based on certification, based on experience, on education, not just because you fall in within an LGBTQ category. Hopefully they're able to bring up the standards the same across the board for everyone, because at the end of the day, all I care is that you're able to do the job, right? That you're able to.
I feel like the LGBTQIA community is catching like a lot of strays. Honestly and truly, I feel like this is the crux of people's grievance towards the DEI program. Honestly and truly, I don't think people really care about whether or not Black people are getting hired for DEI programs. I think the fact that the transgender movement has been pushed onto Americans so heavy is the reason why people are against DEI. Because I don't hear any one of these people really just sitting up talking about race like that. All of these men like this, they keep on talking about transgender people. Like they're pissed about this, right? And honestly and truly, I can understand why that community does want protections. I worked at a job when I was 18 years old, and there was this was the first time I had seen a transgender person, and it was a male who was, I guess, transitioning to a woman. I don't even know if I should say he or she. I'll just out of respect say she. I don't even know if she was on any hormones, but she wasn't passing. Like, she was definitely tall, had the Adam's apple, but would go to the, like, you could tell that this was a male, clearly. And she would go to the women's restroom. And honestly and truly, at that time, this wasn't even a real discussion. I just knew that was a man. I remember coming into the restroom and kind of being a little bit taken aback. But because I had worked with this person and they had never like hit on me or done anything weird, I will honestly say I didn't feel uncomfortable. With that said, I don't think that, like, first of all, transgender people who can pass have been going into the women's restroom and we just didn't know, right? But what I will say is, because I'm a woman and because I understand the risk and the threat that it poses, I just think as policy, trans women shouldn't be going to women's restroom. Now, sister, if you can pass and don't nobody know, because we shouldn't be checking down there, then it doesn't even matter at that point. But like, women do get uncomfortable when they can visibly tell that you were a male and you go into the women's restroom. But anyway, they were going into the restroom. I personally didn't have a problem with that. And I remember the other women that I worked with who were just mean, vicious, and nasty. And I'm not saying that because they were uncomfortable with the trans woman coming to the bathroom. Just in general, they were miserable, mean, vicious, and nasty people. So they did everything in their power to make her feel uncomfortable, complain about her going to the restroom. They picked on her every chance that they get. So like, I've seen it personally where people can be really nasty and mean and disgusting towards transgender people. And I don't agree with that. I don't like that. And I could definitely see how it would affect employment. If we could put some type of protections in place, if we could, and that's what I'm saying, you just never know. People can come up with whatever reason why they're not hiring. But if we could put some type of protections in place for them, I would absolutely agree with that. I don't think it makes sense to say a company should hire a certain amount of transgender people, though. No, I don't think that makes sense at all. Right. But for the ones who are coming and seeking a job opportunity, I can't see why they would need some type of protections. Right.
To watch my back. That's what matters. He's trying to do the same thing with the FAA. The FAA had implemented some type of policy, a DEI hire.
I'm gonna say this also in terms of the U.S. military. I think that's another place where I draw the line. I think when you go to the military, if you're transgender, I need you to look all the way a certain way. I need the enemy to not be able to tell. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you gonna go to the military and you're gonna be a trans woman, then I need you to look the part, sister. Okay, I don't need y'all to be on the battlefield and everybody, the enemy looking like, baby, who y'all supposed to scare? Walking around looking the way that y'all looking. I need you to look all the way. I need you to be very passable. Okay, whether it's a man transition to a man or a woman transition into a woman, I need you to be passable. But again, I can understand why it would cause problems, because what if you have to share barracks and sharing bathrooms? Like, the military is just a very intimate kind of place. So I understand why it causes problems. It's just a very complex situation at this point. And there's clearly a lot of resentment towards the transgender community. And some of it, I feel like, has been brought upon by a very small minority of radical transgender people who feel like, who call people transphobes if they won't date them, or transphobes if you don't want to be in the restroom with them, and they are, they look like the sex they were born as and things like that. Like, there's been so much shaming, and I honestly feel bad for the transgender people who, like, they don't really have an agenda. They just want to be them. They're not trying to shame or blame. They just want to be left alone, and they just want to live their life. Like, they're the ones catching the strays, right? But when you push something too far and too radically, and you try to basically thought police people, you're going to get these knee-jerk reactions. You're going to get people who are viscerally angry. Right. So I don't think we should always roll back protections for transgender people. I see how they need them, but there's a better way to go about doing it. And the transgender community needs to begin to police their own, who are out here being way too radical, because it's making it hard for everybody.
Hire policy, which is ridiculous. Who do you want flying your plane? When you're flying, right, in an aircraft that has a shitload of passengers, who do you want flying your plane? Someone that got hired on because of a DE hire program, or the best qualified pilot? Same thing with a heart surgeon.
And again, like, just because somebody got hired under DEI doesn't mean they're not qualified. It doesn't mean that they have the qualifications. But guess what? That's why, as people who can stand on their own work and their own merit, you probably shouldn't want DEI programs to exist. Like, imagine you go to pilot school and you work really hard. You're one of the best in the game, and you get hired under some type of DEI program. Now all the other pilots or all the other people that you work with are treating you like you know, you were given sympathy when you worked hard. And that's why I say I don't ever want to get hired under any type of DEI. That's why I don't put my race. I go out of my way to make sure that I don't appear to have any type of disadvantages when I am applying for a job, baby. I want you to see all the advantage. Like, I'm putting everything that I accomplished on my dang resume, because ain't nobody gonna say that I came up in here and was hired off of payola and sympathy. Y'all remember when Nicki Minaj said that about Cardi B? Like, no, I'm here based off of my merit. Period.
Who do you want doing fucking heart surgery on you? I don't care what religion, what color your skin is, what spectrum of the LGBTQ community you're from. I really don't care. I want the person that could do it the best. That's the best qualified for the job. The best pilot, right? The best heart surgeon. There should be no DEI hire when for these type of jobs. Law enforcement, Supreme Court justices. Did we forget about that one? Hopefully he does the same with affirmative action. I don't want a job just because I'm a minority, just because I'm.
Yeah, and sometimes people just get on here talking because the Supreme Court already overturned affirmative action. So Donald Trump doesn't have to do anything about affirmative action. That has already been overturned.
I'm Mexican. I want to get the job because I'm the most prepared, because I'm the most educated. I'm the one with the most experience. That's
You know what I will say about Mexican people? Mexican people, they a special kind of people. Okay, they are a different kind of breed. People think all Latinos are the same. All people that speak Spanish are the same. No, I'm going to say culturally, Mexican people are very unique in terms of the work ethic. They will come here and not get anything. I mean, I remember when I was coming up, and that's why I feel like all those people who came here under DACA, they should be able to stay, even their parents. When I was coming up living in Texas and the Mexican people were coming over here illegally, they didn't get all that help. They didn't get all that government assistance. Okay. They really came over here and got it out the mud. A lot of them, you know, started off working menial jobs or working multiple menial jobs, and now you can go to certain areas of Dallas and they have multiple businesses. They own all the businesses, right? They're definitely not sitting around waiting for any handouts, nor did they come here expecting any type of handout, because back then they weren't giving all that help. They weren't giving, like in New York, how they were giving housing and food stamps and cards with money on them and cell phone. No, they didn't get any of that. You either had to come here and start all the way from the bottom, or come stay with an aunt or uncle and work your way to the top. So like, that's why a lot of people don't understand why a lot of Mexican people are even like a lot of Hispanic people, once they get their papers or once they've been over here for a couple generations, they normally, you know, turn conservative. It's because, to be honest, especially from like that older past generation that came over here, they don't agree with a lot of democratic policies. They don't agree with government's handouts. Like, they don't agree with entitlement programs. They don't agree with none of that. They just want to work. And a lot of the times too, y'all got to understand, with this new wave of immigrants who are coming over here, if you have a group of Hispanic people who are already established in what they do, whether it's something like they do countertops, or they build houses, or they work on cars. When you have people who are coming over here with absolutely nothing and they're willing to undercut their prices, they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with the competition. And those are the type of jobs you're going to have to do if you're coming over here illegally and nobody will give you a job, right? So you have these Mexican people who have been over here for a very long time, or South Americans, or Central Americans who have been able to establish their prices and customer base and clientele. And you got people coming in here that were willing to do their jobs for half the price. That pissed them off. So yeah, you best believe many of them went and voted for Trump. Even if they had family members who were over here illegally, because at the bottom line, their bottom line was getting affected. Their ability to feed their family was coming into question. So yeah, a lot of them went in that booth and voted for Donald Trump. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And that's the part, we say it's just because they want to be white people. No, that's the problem. We got to start thinking about money. At the end of the day, money is the main reason why a lot of these people went into that voting booth and voted for Donald Trump. Even when to you, as an outsider looking in, it didn't make sense. I'm gonna mute this. Again, if you're just now coming in, hit that like button. Oh, hey, D. Mally. Hey, how are you? D. Mally, and for those of y'all who are just now coming in, we are talking about how Donald Trump rolled back the DEI program, as well as, he put out that executive order to end birthright citizenship here in the United States. I'm sure that's going to be, it's already it's getting challenged. There have already been, I think, 29 lawsuits filed. That's going to make its way to the Supreme Court. But D. Mally, what do you think? What do you think about these DEI programs being taken away? Have you ever been hired under DEI? I don't know anybody. I personally don't know anybody who has been hired under DEI. I'm not too sure, I'm not too sure how much of an effect it's going to have, to be honest.
That's why I want a job. I don't want to be spoon-fed and handed shit just because I'm a minority. There's no more DEI programs.
Donald Trump just announced that he will no longer recognize transgender in the policy of the United States government, and that they will only recognize male and female.
Under the Trump administration, it will be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Now, this is on top of a ton of other announcements that Donald Trump made today, but the transgender topic is what stood out to a ton of people.
I'm going to say this. I'm very happy about that. And this is why, and again, I just talked to y'all about how I genuinely and truly feel for transgender people. I have a lot of empathy, right? Especially the ones who, I'm not talking about these people who just are on the bandwagon. I'm not talking about these men who really, you're really just a gay man. You just like dressing up as a woman. I'm talking about people who genuinely, in their mind of minds, in their heart of hearts, believe that they should be the opposite sex, or that they feel like the opposite sex. I have a lot of empathy. I couldn't imagine walking around feeling like I'm in the wrong body, right? I ain't never felt that way. Okay. With that said, it's a whole lot of foolishness been going on. I don't have to pretend that just because in your mind you feel like you should have been something else, or you feel like you are something else, I shouldn't have to pretend that that's what it is. And me, out of courtesy, I will call you whatever name you want to be called. I will call you whatever pronoun that you want to be called. But you should not be able to sue somebody just because they call you he and you really are he. Somebody shouldn't lose their job just because they called you by the sex that you already are, when it is just a matter of fact that you are. And this is excluding people because there are anomalies, right? There are people who have certain genitalia that don't necessarily match up with their chromosomes, or they were born with both parts. That is not the majority of these people out here claiming to be transgender now. And what they're doing is they're putting poison in the water for those who are actually experiencing these chromosomal irregularities, people who are actually intersexed, People who like this is a real deal problem. You got people who've been living like you got people who have been living as a man their entire life, and they decide they want to wake up and be a woman one day, and now you got them being loud and proud and poisoning the water for those who are really dealing with medical issues. Okay. Or we're really like genuinely physically just born that way. I've never been able to hold a permanent position for my whole adult life. I benefited from a DEI type of internship, but again, temporary work. So it's never really, DEI ain't never really just been something that's beneficial to you. Like you're not gonna lose any sleep or any money because DEI is going out the window. And D Malley, I think you're a millennial. Shoot, most of us haven't held a job for a long. We job hops over here. We go on to the next best thing. So ain't nothing wrong with that as long as you're working.
He has said that on day one, he would cut federal funding to any school promoting transgender insanity. He also said that he will ban transgenders in all branches of the military as well.
I'm here for that. I heard in California, they were doing the most. Okay, like there was a lot of teachers couldn't tell the parents of a kid if the kid was trying to identify as transgender. I heard they were reading books in elementary school about people feeling like they're in the wrong body. What the hell is going on? Okay. I come from Texas. We weren't playing that down there. You weren't supposed to be in the classroom talking about that. And it's to the point where, like, when I was a little girl, I was a tomboy. I hated dresses. I hated being cute. I was a little stinky girl. I used to play sports outside with the boys. I was a tomboy. And luckily my mother let me be who I was, right? And didn't make me feel like I was, doing something wrong because I was running with the boys all the time. I went through that phase, and then I hit puberty, and then I started to like boys. And then because I like boys, I started being a little bit more prissier. So over time, now I love makeup. I love doing my hair. I love wearing dresses, but I had to go through that phase. My daughter all the time, because she doesn't like putting on dresses, and I don't make her for the most part, but when we're going somewhere nice, if we're going to some type of religious service, you will put on a dress. That's the only thing I ask. And when I tell her that, she's like, oh, I should have been a boy. But what happens is you have people in California who hear their kids say that, and it's automatically like, oh my gosh, we need to be taking them to the doctor and putting them on hormone shots and things like that. And it's like, no, they just want to do something that, or don't want to do something that is in alignment with what we as society says their gender should be doing, and they're being rebellious. Like 9 times out of 10, it is a phase. I am Gen X. We were taught to get a good job and retire from it. I'm learning that practice doesn't work. Not now. Not now. The job market has all the way changed. Hop on the next best thing, smoking. Yeah, always be looking for you another job, especially as soon as I get to feeling like my job is in jeopardy for any reason. It might not even be just because of me. I might see some things moving or shifting or be paying attention to certain things. Baby, I'm already on it. I'm 2 steps ahead of everybody. Okay. You're not going to have me in a bad position. I'm sorry. Okay. These jobs don't have any loyalty. So that's not, back then, boomers used to be able to stay at the same company for 40 and 50 years and then retire. And now a lot of them are struggling with the cost of inflation. They can't afford. A lot of them are having to go back to work after working for 40 and 50 years for the same company. So no, you got to always be putting you first and moving on to the next thing. There's no job security these days at all. I'm so thankful for my job. Girl, there's not. And that's why you have to constantly be evolving and learning new skills. You got to be willing to switch gears. You got to be willing to switch industries. You got to constantly be reinventing yourself and building something for yourself. And, and I think that's the problem too. Going back to the whole DEI thing, I think I think in this situation, the strong will survive. Okay, the strong minorities will survive. The people who are adaptable and changeable, they will survive this. Okay, it's going to be the ones that can't adapt to change. It's going to be ones who feel entitled and feel like they should be given something just because they look a certain way or were born a certain way. It's going to be those who DEI is going to affect the most. The rest of us who are survivors, and like I said, I was talking about this earlier, D. Malley. I don't know if you were here or the rest of y'all were here. I have worked in an industry before that was very much looks dependent. I have been told before, we're not hiring Black women, to my face. And there was nothing I could do about it. We're not hiring Black women. You need to lose 10 pounds and then come back. We're not going for an exotic look right now. I've been told these things to my face. And you know how I handled those situations? Thank you. Thank you for that information. Thank you for that criticism. Do you know people who come at you like that when they see that you're not overly emotional and that you don't get all indignant and that you're not trying to force them to think the way that you think that you can handle that? And then they see you and you're still standing, you're classy. You ain't letting it phase you. You still doing your thing. You're still making your money. When you come back around, now they're interested in you. I promise you. That's how you got to handle people like that. Y'all got to learn how to, not y'all, my subscribers, but just in general, if you're watching this, I don't know, y'all got to learn how to not let people get the best of you, to not live on your knees begging people for something. I don't want nothing that don't want me, period. And whether or not you give me the opportunity is going to be created because God got me at the end of the day. Period. I've been with them 5 years, and I was with the last wave that is able to get a pension after being vested 5 years. Jobs ain't offering that anymore. Girl, you blessed. You better stay where you at. That's so true. Just updated my resume today. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Stay ready. And you know what? You'll be better for it. You will be better for it. If you look at life, not just jobs, but love, relationships, if you look at everything in your life, like I need to put 1000% effort forward at all times so that I can either be ready, maintain what I have, or so that if this switches up on me, I'm not going to be broken. If you look at life like that, then you will be much better for it. It's the people that want to be comfortable that have a problem with these type of changes and are steady trying to force people to accept them. But all of it is a false sense of security. It really is. Nothing in this life is permanent. Everything is changeable and nobody owes you anything. My life didn't get better until I realized that. And the only way that I realized that is where I was put in positions where I was rejected and told no. And I had to go eat that and better myself and make myself more marketable. But a lot of people are never going to get there because you steady sitting up worried about the opportunities that somebody won't give you versus what you can create for yourself. One second.
Well as not allow transgenderism to be taught in elementary schools, middle schools, or high schools. And the last thing that he brought up during this speech was that he was going to ban any men from participating in women's sports. Obviously, this is a
Okay, so he's banning men from participating in men's sport. That should have never been allowed. That should have never been allowed. And I know that it seems mean. I know we want to include everybody, but we can't include everybody. And I know the argument is that, like, if you don't let trans women participate in women's sports, then it's going to make them feel bad about themselves and they're going to go unalive themselves. That's been the bullying tactic, that if you don't bend to their every will and need, they are going to go unalive themselves. But what about, again, like, since we're talking about DEI, what about, like, nobody cares if you are a Hispanic person or a Black person or a short person or an unattractive person, that affects your job prospects probably more than anything, your attractiveness. If you're an unattractive person and you can't get a wife or a date or a job, right? What if you're one of those people, like those, an unattractive person can't say, hey, you got to hire me or you got to date me or I'm going to go unalive yourself. People don't have sympathy for that. People don't have sympathy for the Black person or the Hispanic person who says, I'm going to go unalive myself because I feel like I can't get a job. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. We have to go figure it out. So the fact that this one particular group of people felt the need to constantly threaten and bully us with them unaliving themselves, I think that's wrong. And again, that wasn't all of them. I feel like it was a small minority of them doing that. But then you had other people who jumped on that bandwagon and were like, oh my gosh, you can't say anything about any of this or else they're going to go unalive themselves. And it's like, well, you know, if a person wants to go unalive themselves, they're, you know, over somebody saying this, that they can't participate in women's sports, I feel like there are other underlying issues going on. There are other mental health issues. Like, how long realistically, if that's enough to make you go unalive yourself, how long realistically were you going to last on this earth? Eventually, you was going to take yourself up out of here. And I know that sounds mean or insensitive, but my point is there are other underlying issues, and we can't be I can't be responsible. I can't change the way that I think or material reality because I'm afraid you're going to go unalive yourself. Now, me personally, I try my best to be kind and courteous towards people, but like there are certain limits, and I have a daughter. I would hate that and she does gymnastics. Let's say my daughter's doing gymnastics and she's putting in the work and she goes to the Olympics or, you know, she's competing at a college level. I would hate for her to have worked that hard. She's thinking she's competing with other girls only to lose to somebody who had physical advantages because they were born a male. And you know, y'all got to think about what other people, that's the thing. I feel like with the transgender issue, it all came at the expense of biological women. We were the only one who were carrying a lot of that, who were going to have to give up a lot to make space for that. Because trans men, you know, people say, well, why don't y'all talk about trans men? Trans men aren't dominating, nor are they capable of dominating any sport at an Olympic level where they are competing against biological men. I don't care how many hormones they take. They are not dominating.
Affecting a ton of people, and he's saying that he is going to sign all of this into law day one. Let me know what you guys think.
So yeah, he did that, but that's what he said he was gonna do, you know. And honestly and truly, a lot of liberals don't want to accept it. They think people are hateful and mean, but it just went too far, and that's what pushed this single issue alone pushed a lot of people to the right, you know, because a lot of people who were on the left or liberals or progressive, they were there for the economic reasons. But then the cultural stuff just kind of became weird. It was like, hold on now. And it's like, if you didn't sign on to all of this, you could agree on every other progressive issue. You could agree on Medicare for all. You could agree on free college. But it's like, if you didn't agree that trans women are women or trans men are men, if you didn't ingrain that and beat that into your head and say that that's just what it was, then you were basically shunned. You know, you were told that you were a transphobe or right-wing conservative. So it's like, okay, if you're already going to shame me and kick me out of the community over this one issue, I might as well go over here and see what the Republicans are talking about. And a lot of us did, and we're like, oh, we like this message over here, because it had become a completely different Republican Party. You had so many people who had come from other parties or walks of life who were kind of forced over there that we kind of formed our own coalition, to be honest. And to be clear, I'm an independent, but I definitely am here for the Republican agenda in 2025. I am. I ain't gonna say I ain't.
All federal DEI employees will.
Okay, so this guy is talking about everything that Donald Trump did his first day in office.
Will get laid off and birthright citizenship is now over. Here's everything Trump has already signed in his first day in office in just 60 seconds. Deportations and raids on illegal immigrants have now started. American troops are now stationed at the southern border in what's now declared a national emergency.
I'm here for all these deportations. I'm here for it. The crime rate is too high. All this stuff that is going on in New York and Chicago. And this is what I will say to a lot of Texans. You liberal Democrats in Texas, y'all really ain't shit. Y'all really ain't. And here's why. This is why I'm telling y'all ain't shit, right? Y'all sit back and talk so bad about Greg Abbott over the issue of abortion, because that really seemed to be the only thing that y'all can talk about is abortion. That seemed to be the only thing y'all care about. It's like y'all don't care about nothing else. And y'all ain't got sense enough to look around and see everybody wants to move to our state. You can't even move around on the freeway no more. Y'all remember our freeways used to be clear? You know, now it takes you like 30 minutes to get somewhere that's like was originally 10 minutes away. We're having to deal with unprecedented traffic because everybody is flocking from democratically run states to Texas. Why? Because we don't got state and local taxes. We don't pay that much in taxes. So yeah, we don't have a lot of entitlement programs. But for the most part, we were able to live good and keep a lot of our money, and things were cheap. Now it's changing because yesterday's price is not today's price, because all these Californians with all this money is moving to Texas. But we are so ungrateful. Right? We are so critical of the Republican leaders in our state. And it's like the whole time we were living good and didn't even know we were living good. So I'm going to say this right here, right now. One of the reasons why I even was willing to yes, you're right, D. Malley. Honestly and truly, Donald Trump is an independent. Like he said several times, even on the issue of abortion, he believes in abortion. He said he believes most people believe in abortion with just limits. He said, I am not, if a bill came to him banning abortion, he would not sign it. Right? So he like from tradition, that's the reason why a lot of traditional rhino Republicans don't like him, right? Because he's definitely independent. He just knew the Republicans were the only people who were going to give him a fair shake, because the Democrats don't let anybody who is not in lockstep with Nancy Pelosi actually win the nomination. They don't do that over there. Okay, they're in the business of rigging elections. Anyway, but what was I saying? Like, we had it good. Then during the pandemic, after about a month, our governor let all the businesses open up. We were able to go to work. We were able to feed ourselves. We were able to provide for ourselves. If you wanted to wear a mask, you could. If you didn't want to wear a mask, you didn't have to. Yes, some of y'all work for companies that made y'all get that inoculation, but our governor was like, baby, at the federal, at the state government here, we're not doing that over here. We're not doing that. So we had a lot of protections. And now that all of these side effects from that inoculations are coming out, a lot of y'all got egg on y'all face and y'all don't want to admit that y'all scared. because you don't put that stuff in your body. Meanwhile, us Texans were given the option to deal with that pandemic the way we wanted to deal with the pandemic. I remember going to DC in 2022, and I'm from Texas, so in my mind, like, baby, this is over. The COVID is like the flu, and people getting upset with me and feeling away because I went into the grocery store without a mask. Y'all still wearing masks over here? And then you're saying something to me about it? Are you crazy? It was just, it was a culture shock to me. But I appreciate Greg Abbott. A lot of y'all want to sit up. The only reason why y'all have the luxury of calling people who don't want to, who support mass deportation, the only reason why a lot of y'all liberal Texans that live in Dallas and Houston have the luxury of calling those people racist is because our governor redirected all those people who would have flooded your communities to Chicago, okay, to New York, okay, to all those other places, to Colorado, to all those other sanctuary states. And again, I guess we're thinking about it as like we've lived with illegal immigrants this whole time in Texas, but we have never dealt with that many at one time. And again, different cultures be on different type of time. Everybody ain't out here moving like Mexicans. I'm sorry. Mexican people, I got to give y'all props. I got to give y'all props. If you was ever going to have an illegal immigrant, y'all the best ones to have. But ain't everybody out here moving like y'all. I'm sorry. Mexicans are very family-oriented, get it out the mud kind of people. Okay, we have people coming from everywhere. You had Venezuela emptying out their prisons. Some of y'all have children. You don't know what these people were coming over here, what they did. Venezuela don't even want to take their own citizens back. The rule on the books now is they do not take illegal immigrants that are from Venezuela who are coming back from the United States. Why? Because they literally did empty out their prisons and send everybody to the United States. And for that, Venezuela is safer now. But we see all these crimes going on in the United States. They don't even want their own people back. And I'm not saying all Venezuelans who come over here are criminals. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying a lot of them are. I'm saying enough of them are to where I didn't want, hell no. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I was influenced to think Cali was against Texas. I rock with Texas now that I know the truth. Yeah, let me tell you, the Californians who moved to Texas, they love Texas. They love Texas. They love it here. It's hot. It's a little hot, but they love it.
Ramaswamy is now out of Doge, potentially out of pressure from Elon Musk and Trump's inner circle. Meanwhile, Elon Musk now has an official Doge White House office.
So y'all know part of the reason why they put Vivek at a Doge. Y'all know him and Elon, MAGA lit them up because they were talking about trying to promote HB1 visas. They just didn't know how to read the room. Okay, at this point, this administration don't need to be talking about bringing in any immigrants. Whatever legal immigrant programs that we have, keep them that way, or if there needs to be some extra restrictions depending on the situation, but we got to fix our economy. Okay. Vivek came on the internet on Twitter talking about how we need to be importing workers to work in the tech industries because Americans are lazy. And baby, MAGA rolled his butt. So he's at a Doge now. We'll see what happens with him. I think he's a very good politician. But, you know, the MAGA movement gonna make you stay in your lane. That's one thing. They do check them over there.
Office and a White House email address. The TikTok ban has been lifted for 75 days, as Trump wants to make a deal where the American government would now get 50% ownership over TikTok. And Trump has threatened China with increased tariffs if China does not comply. January 6 rioters are now pardoned. Trump has threatened Mexico and Canada with 25% tariffs that could start in a few days because they're allowing a vast number of people, Canada's a very bad abuser also, vast numbers of people to come in. They are now officially.
If y'all watched the last live that I did, I went over a little bit more in depth the history of tariffs in our country. I support these tariffs. I support these tariffs 1000%. As a matter of fact, up until the 16th Amendment, There was no such thing as an income tax here in the United States. And I saw this on the Shade Room. They posted how Donald Trump was talking about getting rid of the federal income tax. He been talking about that. And you had a whole bunch of, the Shade Room is so low IQ, y'all. You had a whole bunch of people in the Shade Room upset. Why would you be upset with being able to keep your entire paycheck? What would make you mad about that? If he's saying we're going to fund the government through tariffs, which there is precedent that has been done before, why would you need to give up your paycheck? That's the purpose of the tariffs, so that you can keep your money, all your money. What is wrong with y'all? I think a lot of people would rather get their little income tax refund check once a year than keep all of your money and choose what you want to do with it. Okay. Furthermore, at first, when the income tax was passed, it was considered progressive. The idea was that the rich would be funding the government. Now, because the rich have so much money and they have all the politicians in their pocket, so they don't pay taxes. We're the ones who are paying the taxes. So we might as well just let the income tax thing go and fund the government off of tariffs. And again, that's how it used to be. An income tax was illegal in the United States. The United States was funded primarily on tariffs. Again, Andrew Jackson was the first and only president to pay off the national debt after the war of, I believe it was the War of 1812, because of tariffs. And yes, how tariffs work is if you are buying imported products, you are going to pay more for it. So guess what you do? You do like they do in Colombia and other places. You buy what's made in the United States. And the idea with tariffs is you don't put a tariff on something that your country doesn't produce. So you don't put a tariff on medication that we're able to produce. You don't put tariffs on parts that we don't produce. You only put tariffs on things that we do produce, because it does two things. It forces Americans to buy locally, which you probably will. And number two, it forces the company to move their business into the United States to avoid paying tariffs. And then you hire American workers to lower your cost, right? And again, how tariffs work also is the people who are importing the goods pay the tariffs, but you got to understand, if people are not buying their goods, if you have a Japanese person or a Japanese company that wants to sell in the United States, but they're not able to sell as much because people don't want to pay the tariffs, they're going to move their company into the United States, because this is where the money is. This is where the value is. This is how it works. They have tariffs on our goods. So again, people need to stop listening to all of this misinformation, to be honest. Or you can listen to it, but get the other side. Don't let people fear monger you into playing yourself.
Officially, only two genders that the United States government will recognize. The Gulf of Mexico is now called the Gulf of America on all maps printed by the American government. And finally, although nothing has been signed, Trump...
The Gulf of Mexico should have been the Gulf of America. And this is why. And I know Trump's doing it because it's like, oh, we're America. We are basically the top dog in the Western Hemisphere. But technically speaking, this is the Americas, okay? Mexico is like one country. The United States, Canada, and Mexico is a part of North America, okay? All those other countries in South America is South America. The Caribbean islands are considered the Americas. To me, that makes sense, actually.
Trump continues to talk about taking over Greenland, the Panama Canal, and he jokes about making Canada the 51st American state. All federal DEI employees will get laid off.
So y'all know I'm a history teacher. I like giving y'all a little bit of lessons. Again, if you're just not coming in here, please hit the like button and hop in the chat if you care. I love talking to y'all. I love interacting with y'all. So the history of the Panama Canal was, it wouldn't have been built if it weren't for the United States. As a matter of fact, Panama used to be a part of Colombia. It was all one country, and the United States helped fund a rebel movement so that Panama could break off and become its own country because Colombia would not let us build a canal through that region. So we funded that revolution. Panama gained its independence, and we negotiated a deal with them so that we could build the Panama Canal. Bottom line is it wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the United States. Now, whether or not, you know, the morality is questionable as to whether or not we should have funded that war, but it happened already. It happened. It's over. It's done. We lost a lot of men, American men, a lot of American workers were unalive building that canal. Okay, the conditions were treacherous. So the reason why we built it is because it makes trade easier, right? Instead of having to go all the way around South America, you can just cut through the Panama Canal, right? With that said, Jimmy Carter, who was doing what he thought was the right thing, sold the Panama Canal back to Panama for $1. But when you give something to a country or a group of leaders, and I'm not talking about Panamanian people, I'm talking about their leaders who don't know how to maintain it or who are all about that almighty dollar, then they are not going to manage it well. So basically right now, China is controlling the Panama Canal. Well, if y'all were gonna let another foreign power who is stronger than y'all come and control that canal, then we might as well take it back. Honestly and truly, if the purpose of us giving it back was to try to be nice and do the right thing and let you have control over your own sovereign land, and you decided that you wanted to let another superpower who we are in competition with come on our side of the world and in our hemisphere and control that canal, and not only control that canal, charge us exorbitant prices to move through that canal because it's not free. There are tolls. Then we might as well take it back. Don't that make sense? Yes, the Americas as to Africa. Yeah, like this is the Americas. Name it the Gulf of America. You know, people are saying that's imperialistic, but it is what it is. I don't care whether or not that happens though. Like it could stay the Gulf of Mexico. It could become the Gulf of America. You know, and one thing I've learned too, again, I believe all nations should have the right to self-determination. But since moving out of the United States, I can honestly say I have a deeper appreciation for our country. Not that I want to live back there, but like, for example, I was talking to somebody who was Colombian and he was kind of criticizing the United States a little bit, but then he started talking about how he doesn't like Maduro in Venezuela. And he was like, well, why? I don't understand why the United States hasn't taken him out yet. And it's like, okay, so y'all don't like us and y'all think that we are imperialistic, but when you want somebody to come save the day and do something for you, then you're looking at the United States like, when are you going to do something about this? Why don't your country do something about it? Why don't you ask your president to do something about it? So it's like people will talk about us, but then when they feel like it's convenient, they want us to step in and police. But they want us to police for their causes. So I'm all for us. If it will lower the cost on goods, if it will lower shipping costs, like if it will benefit our economy, I'm 1000% on board with taking the Panama Canal back because it is being mismanaged and the Panamanian government are not doing with that canal what they were originally supposed to do when we gave it to them. Because we gave it to them. We sold it to them for $1, even though we were the ones who built it. So again, I'm not, people can say that sounds imperialistic. Oh, well. As far as Greenland, a lot of people take issue with Donald Trump saying that he wants to make Greenland a territory of the United States. I've seen multiple videos. I'll probably pull them up another day of people from Greenland saying that they would love to be a part of the United States because right now they're a part of Denmark. So another nation already is, I guess, over them. You know, they're not their own sovereign country. And what it's looking like is Denmark can't manage the resources in that island. They don't have the funds to, they don't have the backing to. So it's very possible, you know, Hillary Clinton laughed when Donald Trump said that, but it's very, was it that or the Gulf of America thing? One of those. But like people are laughing at him about it, but they're honestly considering it. You know, I think if Trump comes to them with a really good deal, then we will be able to acquire Greenland. And the reason why that would be a good thing for the average American citizen is because it is abundant in resources, oil being one of them. You know, if we can drill our own oil, the price of oil goes down. Do y'all know in Saudi Arabia and all those oil rich companies that drill their own oil, they are not paying $3, $4, $5, $6, and $7 a gallon for oil. They have it in abundance. Most people are paying like 50 cents for oil, for gas. So that would help in terms of our everyday costs. So I see a lot of criticism like Donald Trump, he ain't doing nothing about these grocery prices. Newsflash, he can't. He can't. The only thing he can do is try to work out some good trade agreements. And in the long term, those grocery stores, those individual grocers will lower those prices. But in terms of like, but that will have an effect. It really will. But he can't do anything today in terms of telling these grocery stores, you can't charge what you want to charge. A lot of these grocers would just go out of business or close up shop. But oil, that's one of the main things that we can change. That's one of the main things that we can get the cost of down if we drill our own oil. And I'm here for it. We should have been doing that, honestly and truly. Okay, with that said, I'm going to, no, don't leave, stay. Okay, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And you can come up if you want to give your opinion. It's okay if you disagree. If you want to maybe offer a perspective that I did not consider, I'm all here for it. I'm here to be challenged. Give me 1 minute. So the link is in the chat. You don't have to cam up. If you just want to come talk on your phone with your avatar, that's fine. So the link is in the chat. I think we're in for a really interesting 4 years. This is great content. For us content makers, we're going to have a lot to talk about. I think this is a little bit jarring. I think we have to hold space and have some compassion for a lot of liberals. I have to remind myself, especially the ones like that are in our community, like as a Black person, we have had it drilled in our head that the Democratic Party can do no wrong and that the Republicans are evil. They're all evil, racist, white hillbillies. Ironically, we can't see the racism in that, but that is what we have been taught. That is what people believe. It is a part of their identities. So like I'm holding space for that. And like I'm willing to talk and I'm willing to have conversation. The problem is a lot of them get upset or they're not willing to talk or they're just like too easily triggered. Like it's so strange. But again, when you've made a political party your identity, then it's going to be hard when somebody is coming and they're bringing facts, information, and opposing views that counter that because you're not used to hearing it. Okay. I remember when I was in high school, we had to do like these. Oh, is somebody there? No. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. We had to do these news reports in my government class. And, you know, Mr. Rosenzweig, rest in peace. He was a really good teacher. But I remember whenever we wrote our news reports of the news we watched the night before, he used to say, you can't watch Fox News. And now looking back, I don't really like that he did that because you should be able to watch any type of news and report on it. But it was kind of like he was training us that Fox News wasn't real news. And to be fair, you know, Fox News has pushed out its own propaganda over the years and its own agendas. Or there's been times where they were really like, you know, trying to have a moment, trying to catch a sound bite. But honestly, all of the news worked like that. And honestly, the only way if you're gonna watch mainstream news now today in 2025, the only one who's gonna give you the real is Fox. Ironically. Okay, guys. So with that said, I don't see anybody coming up here. I hope y'all like this show tonight. Please remember to like and comment and share my videos. You know, I'm trying to grow. So share my content with anybody who you think might be interested. And honestly and truly, I want to say this, like, for all the minorities that rock with me, because my channel is predominantly cater to majority of my audience are minorities. Like, I want to thank those of y'all who have continued to rock with me as my opinions, my politics, and my takes on things have evolved. One thing that I do want to say is that I pride myself on the community that I've built here of open-minded people who can respectfully agree to disagree and hear other perspectives. I think that's, you know, I thank you. I really want to thank you for allowing me to have a space to do this, because you don't have to be here. You could be spending your time somewhere else listening to something else. So, like, I definitely commend all of y'all for, you know, wanting to hear what I have to say and not being afraid to share your opinions, even though it might go against the grain socially. With that said, guys, I'm going to do my best to come on tomorrow. I don't want to guarantee it though, because I have to work a lot tomorrow, but I will try my best. With that said, y'all have a wonderful night. Goodbye.